Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will talk about the poem Requiem from Block 6, Unit 1 of MEG 14, Contemporary Indian Literature and English Translation. This poem is Khasi poetry written by Kynpham Singh Nongkynrih. The translator is the poet himself. The word Requiem refers to a prayer or a song for the dead. This poem belongs to the rich tradition of poetry from Northeast India. Literature from this region reflects the culture, traditions and identity of the people of Northeast India. It deals with social, political and historical realities including violence, unrest and cultural change in the society. It blends personal experiences with collective concerns of society. It is rich in nature, folklore, myths and indigenous traditions. The poetry combines lyricism with realism, expressing both beauty and harsh realities. Northeast poets are often bilingual or multilingual. They write both in English as well as their native language. The poetry presents regional experiences with universal human themes such as identity, love, loss, memory and death. Thus we can say the poetry of Northeast India gives voice to the region's unique culture while addressing universal human concerns. Now let's come to the introduction of the poet. Kynpham Singh Nongkynrih was born on 4th April 1964 in the East Khasi Hills district of Meghalaya, that is Cherrapunji. He belongs to Khasi, an indigenous tribal community living mostly in the state of Meghalaya in northeastern India. He taught as a lecturer of English in Sankardev College, Shillong, and edited the English daily Apira during 1994-96. He resides in Shillong, the capital of Meghalaya. He is a bilingual writer, writing in both English and Khasi. He is currently Professor of Head of Department of English at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, Meghalaya. He is also a translator, editor and an academic and has made significant contributions to Khasi literature. He also translated 10 books for children in Khasi. His important English poetry collections include Moments and The Sieve. He is flexible in his choice of themes ranging from Khasi mythology to social and political tones. His poetry is known for its rich imagery, irony, satire, social criticism and deep concern for his culture and people. He explores universal themes such as love, death, grief, memory, identity and human relationships. Through his poetry, Nongkynrih beautifully bridges the gap between regional experience and universal human concerns. He received Northeast India Poetry Award in 2004 from Northeast India Poetry Council, Tripura. He was awarded a fellowship for Outstanding Artists 2004 from the Government of India. Now let's come to the poem. The poem Requiem is a dirge on the death of a young woman called Mary. What is dirge? Dirge is a lamentation. Now let's start the poem. The first stanza. The moans that floated into the still autumn nights were borne by the cold winds onto the season of carols. The poet begins the poem not by telling us about the Mary's illness or by introducing her family. Instead, he begins with sound, the sound of painful moans. The word moans refer to the cries or sounds made by a person who is in intense pain. These are Mary's cries as she suffers from her illness. The poet says that these moans floated into the still autumn nights. It means that cries spread gently through the silent nights. Mary's suffering fills the entire atmosphere. Still means silent and motionless. The season of autumn is symbolic. Like the autumn often represents the final stage of life, death, decay, or decline in literature. The poet further says that the moans were carried by cold winds. Literally, the wind carries the sound. Symbolically, the cold wind represents sorrow, loneliness, emotional emptiness, and nearness of death. Finally, the poet says that these moans entered the season of carols. A carol is a Christmas song. Christmas is usually associated with joy, celebration, hope, and new life. But here a contrast is there. While the outside world celebrates Christmas, one family experiences sorrow. Through this contrast, the poet reminds us that joy and suffering often exist side by side. Now, so in just 4 lines, the poet creates a powerful atmosphere of sadness. We have not yet seen Mary, but through sound and symbolism, we already feel her pain. Now, the second stanza. We will read the second, third, and fourth stanzas. That is, I heard them nightly beating against the window panes like disembodied tenebrios, pleading to be let in. I heard them as I went to sleep and heard them as the rooster sounded his first call to the sun. I heard them as the clocks summoned schoolboys to their texts and heard them as the muezzin loosened his azan into a murky air. Now, here, every night the speaker hears Mary's painful cries. The poet imagines these cries as disembodied tenebrios, pleadings. Disembodied means without a physical body. Tenebrios means any beetle or a mealworm who prefers to reside in dark places, like a lover of darkness or one who lurks in dark. So we can say the poet imagines Mary's cries as dark, hidden, shadowy creature knocking against the window panes as if they are begging to be allowed inside. This is not meant literally. It is a powerful poetic image showing that Mary's suffering has become so intense that her cries haunt the speaker's mind and cannot be ignored. Now, whenever we encounter difficult words in poetry, we should first understand their literal meaning and then see how the poet uses them symbolically. This way, we can appreciate poetry. Now, I heard them, we talked about these 3 stanzas, the second, third, and fourth. Here, the poet continues with the repeated phrase, I heard them. This repetition is called a refrain and is one of the most striking features of the poem. The speaker says that he heard Mary's moans when he went to sleep, when the rooster made its loud call in the morning to announce the start of a new day, and muezzin, when the muezzin gave the azan, means the person, an official person at the mosque, announcing the Islamic call to prayer. Azan means prayer. Now, why does the poet mention all these different moments? He wants to show that Mary's suffering continues throughout the day and night. Like time moves forward as usual. Morning comes, children go to school, people pray, and daily life continues, but Mary's pain does not end. The poet here brings together sounds from different aspects of life. The rooster's call, like roosters sounds for the, like in the morning, in the early morning, and the school clock representing education, and daily routine representing education and daily routine, and the muezzin's azan representing a religious life. The poet suggests that the whole world goes on with its normal activities while Mary continues to suffer. So this contrast makes the poem even more touching. Now again, we'll move to the next stanza. What was wrong with Mary? Her very name calls upon God to protect, but there she was moaning as naturally as a sleeper snoring. No doctor came. And finally, only two titanic tarantulas, one black, the other with a crimson chest, crept with slow, hairy steps, like skulkers of the night, and hauled her off to their invisible lair. Here, there's a rhetorical question which expresses grief rather than expecting an answer. That is, what was wrong with Mary? The simile here is as naturally as a sleeper snoring. Her cries had become such a regular part of life that they seemed as natural as breathing. The name Mary reminds us of the Virgin Mary in the Christian tradition and suggests God's love, care and protection. After showing Mary's endless suffering, the poet now presents one of the most heartbreaking lines in the poem, "No doctor came." This statement not only describes Mary's situation but also becomes a powerful criticism of society. This line has a deeper meaning. It suggests that she may have been a victim of poverty, lack of healthcare or social neglect. The poet does not explain why no doctor came. Instead, he leaves the reader to reflect on society's failure to help someone in need. Now here, the two titanic tarantulas. The poet then introduces a striking image. Instead of a doctor, two large, gigantic tarantulas arrive. The tarantulas are not ordinary spiders. They are symbolic figures representing death. The first tarantula is black, a color traditionally associated with darkness. And the second has a crimson chest. The color crimson or deep red may suggest blood, suffering or mortality. Together, the two spiders become the personification of death. The poet says that the spiders crept with slow, hairy steps. Why slowly? Because death often approaches quietly and gradually. The spiders are compared to the skulkers of the night. The skulker is someone who moves secretly, quietly, often trying not to be seen. The comparison suggests that death arrives silently and mysteriously without warning. Hauled her off. Finally, the spiders haul Mary away to invisible lair. Hauled means to pull or drag with effort. Invisible lair means unknown world beyond death. So here there is personification. The tarantulas behave like human beings. They walk, they come with a purpose. They carry Mary away. Normally, when someone dies, we expect angels or divine messengers in poetry, but Nongkynrih uses tarantulas instead, because he wants death to appear somewhat frightening, mysterious. So this image also reflects Khasi imagination and folklore, giving the poem a unique cultural flavor. Now, with Mary's death, the atmosphere of the poem changes. Until now, the poem focused on her suffering. Now it focuses on the grief of her family and the response of the community. Now let's come to the second part. That is, we'll read the stanza. Love broke into loud lamentations. The mother cried for divine explanations. Mourners swarmed her deathbed. Now here the silence of the house is broken by the loud cries and expressions of grief. Lamentations means deep expressions of sorrow for someone who has died. The next line, the mother cried for deep explanations, means Mary's mother is unable to accept her daughter's death, she turns to God and asks, why did this happen? Next, the mourners swarmed her deathbed. The word swarmed means that many people gathered quickly. Friends, neighbors, relatives, and members of the community come together to support the grieving family. The poet then describes the funeral preparations. We'll read the stanza. A tent was erected, the courtyard illuminated, a tearful vigil was kept up for 2 consecutive nights. Packs of cards were bought. Raconteurs joked, sympathizers guffawed, her body was bathed and scented, utensils were rented. She was dressed in her favorite clothes, adorned with her favorite trinkets. So here, these lines, the poet here is now showing how an entire community shares grief. This reflects an important feature of Khasi society. In times of sorrow, the whole community comes together to support the family which is in sorrow. Now here, these lines may surprise us, why people are playing cards, telling stories, and even laughing at a funeral. The answer lies in understanding the cultural context. The family and the mourners remain awake for 2 nights during the vigil. To stay awake, they play cards, tell stories, and engage in conversations. Now the word raconteur means a person who tells stories in an interesting and entertaining way. The word guffawed means laughed loudly. The poet is not suggesting the people have forgotten Mary. Rather, he realistically portrays human behavior. Even in moments of sorrow, people continue to interact, share memories, and support one another. The poet realistically portrays funeral customs without idealizing it. Now, the next lines like, a funeral feast was hosted, church elders were invited, the cortege assembled, prayers were offered. Now the funeral becomes a religious ceremony. A funeral feast is arranged for all those who have come to pay their respects. This reflects the Khasi tradition of sharing food during important social occasions. The poet mentions that church elders are invited. This tells us that the family portrayed in this poem follows Christianity. The poem combines Khasi cultural practices with Christian religious traditions. Now, kwai in dishes was ordered, and sermons were shouted, gossips were floated, palms were read, tea and biscuits were distributed. Then her sudden demise was sadly lamented. Such a young girl, such a sweet girl, such promise. But the eschatologists offered some comfort. They were happy she went so peacefully. Now, kwai here refers to betel leaf and erica nut, a traditional item of hospitality in Khasi society. Offering it is a mark of welcome and respect. Sermons were delivered, means religious leaders preached about life, death, and faith. But at the same time, gossip also continued. People greeted one another, and tea and biscuits were served. People shook hands. Why does poet include all these ordinary details? Because he wants to show that funerals are not only moments of grief, they are also social gatherings where people meet, talk, comfort each other, and continue with ordinary human interactions. This realistic portrayal makes the poem more authentic. The poem ends with people expressing sorrow over Mary's untimely death. Eschatologists refer to religious people or church elders who speak about death from the perspective of faith. She went so peacefully means they try to comfort the grieving family by saying she went so peacefully. But we know Mary did not die peacefully. She suffered. This irony makes the ending powerful. So we can say Requiem is much more than a poem about the death of Mary. It is a profound meditation on death, grief, community and human compassion. Through vivid imagery, symbolism, irony and realistic descriptions of Khasi funeral customs, Kynpham sing Nongkynrih transforms one family's loss into a universal human experience. The poem reminds us that while death is inevitable, the love, support and solidarity of a community help people endure their grief. Now, we can say that Requiem is both a requiem and an elegy. The poem reflects Khasi culture and Christian funeral traditions. Important literary devices include imagery, symbolism, irony, repetition, simile and personification. The central themes are death, grief, community, social neglect and human compassion. The line "no doctor came" and the ending "she went so peacefully" are crucial because they reveal the poem's subtle social criticism and irony. So hope you found this explanation useful. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching this video.